Hey folks, welcome to Yahoo Sports, and I am Kevin Iole. And my next guest, over the last 6 years, he has fought 19 times. 18 of those fights have ended in knockouts, 16 wins by him, 2 losses by him, and 1 ended in a submission, of course, in a decision. Of course, I'm talking about the UFC interim lightweight champion, Justin Gaethje. And I guess, Justin, as I start this interview, I have to ask you this. What the hell happened against Melvin Guillard that you didn't get the knockout finish?
Well, first of all, he missed weight, and it went from a 5-round fight to a 3-round fight. He left in the 3rd round. He left in a wheelchair, and I still want to get my hands on that judge that gave him that fight.
Yeah,
preposterous.
I remember. I was just kidding. I mean, it's just amazing. You look at your record, and it's just filled with finishes. And now you're on the verge of, if you finish the next one, you're going to be the pound for pound best fighter in the world. You're fighting Khabib UFC 254 on Saturday. Going to be an amazing fight. When you came into the UFC, did you think it was going to move this fast? Did you think you'd get within a 2-year span this quickly where you're in fighting for the championship?
One reason I am here is because I never look ahead. I would have never dreamed or thought that it would be here, only because I would never allow myself to have that thought process. I think that would be detrimental to my game. My game is to be the best today. My life doesn't exist after October 24th right now.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, the thing that's it really surprises me about you, I guess, is you're a collegiate wrestler of some, good note. I mean, a lot of accolades in your wrestling career, and yet you have such unbelievable hands. Had you done any scrapping beforehand? Like, did you use your hands in anything before you got into MMA?
No, it was crazy. I was never in a street fight. A couple brawls in college, big brawls where there's like 50 people fighting. But outside that, it was pure wrestling. My first 5 fights, I fought without ever throwing up. I had never been punched. I had never thrown a punch, never thrown a kick. But the mechanics of what I did, I was on the swim team. I was a pitcher. I was a quarterback. I was a punter. I was the kicker. Those mechanics. Throwing a baseball, throwing a fastball is the same exact mechanics as throwing a punch. So yeah, I mean, it's translated so well. And I would say the most important fact, genetics, my bones are so dense. I have dense bones. And one thing that happens in a fight is your bones will touch their bones, and someone's bones have to give when bones touch. That's just the way it works.
That's been crazy. Can you remember the first time where you landed a really good shot, and what was that feeling like? When you haven't done it all your life, and now here you are the first time in a fight, and you land that big flush one, and is good. What was that feeling like?
So actually, it happened in those brawls I was talking about. I threw 2 punches, and each of those punches, the guys, they did not stay awake. And yeah, I was absolutely amazed that could happen. I had no idea that was even a possibility. But yeah, I remember the first guy, he was trying to blindside me and came from my blind side, one of my blind sides, and I just caught him out of the side of my eye, and I just, somehow got all the way through a right hand, and my hand melted through his face. Oh. And it was a pretty special feeling. I didn't feel good for him, but it felt good for me.
Imagine the stories he's telling people now. I was in this brawl, and you should see what happened to Justin Gaethje, right?
I hope they did not know it was me.
What about, when did you feel as a pro fighter that, you finally weren't just a strong dude with big dense bones, that, you had good technique, and that, that you actually were good at this sport?
I can't allow myself to think that, the way I fight, I've been telling myself every day that Khabib's gonna, make me look like a bitch, and that he's gonna take my life from me. So that's how I do it. That's how I get ready for occasions like this. I told myself Tony was gonna make me look like that. He was gonna embarrass me, and then I went out there and did what I did, and I was absolutely surprised every time. Every time when I knocked out Edson Barboza, I was so surprised.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I think I do it a little different than most.
And you do, and I wonder when we talk about, I mentioned about your great wrestling accolades that you had when you came into MMA. Obviously, everybody knows wrestling is probably the best base for MMA, and you do have great MMA wrestling, but it's nothing that we see offensive in your game. Do how did that come to be that you just didn't use this great gift that you have?
So I think the reason why wrestling is the best base for MMA is not because the physical attributes, obviously, but the mental attributes that you have to gain to be a successful wrestler. You have to, it's you versus you every single day. If I don't quit, then if it's either my wrestling partner, best friend, it can be my best friend, but in wrestling practice, I'm going to break you. And if I can't break you in the process, I will break myself. And I did that for so many years that, you learn things about yourself. You learn how far you can go. You learn that when you are finished, you are not finished. And those are the things that I carry with me into the fights.
So
The physical parts, I mean, I'm extremely athletic. You don't see a lot of people doing backflips off a cage. I could do a standing backflip right now. I just look like a normal dude, but for some reason I'm extremely athletic, and that's the name of my game.
you mentioned all these other sports. Were you good at those other sports?
I was good, yes. I'm glad I wasn't bigger because I would have tried to play football. But yeah, I mean, I was the starting quarterback, one of the main pitchers at my school. I'm from a small town too, so it's not hard to be a standout athlete in a small place.
I wonder when you think about it though, the stigma's not there as much anymore, but back in the day, I've covered MMA for so long that, back in the day, people thought you were crazy and that, cage fighting, oh my God. But yet I think there's more damage and you potentially get hurt more in football than you do as a fighter. And would you agree with that? You played football and you watch football, would you agree with that assessment?
It's certainly not potential. I mean, it's proven. The science is there. It's boxing and football are tenfold as dangerous as what we do.
Right. Yeah, that's crazy. Now, the one thing in danger when you fight Khabib is to get your arm torn off, or who knows what it's going to be. I mean, his grappling is next level. Nobody has really solved it. Some people were better than others, but nobody has solved his grappling. How do you approach it? I mean, do you see any flaws in what he does, or do you have to somehow find a way to keep the fight on the feet?
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely cannot stay. I can't be on the fence. The man is impossible to beat if you are riding your ass on the fence. So that's not where I will be. Yeah, I don't know. I can't be in the middle. I got to be in the middle of the cage. I got to create damage. Damage is the name of the game when it comes to myself. He will be in danger for 25 minutes, and I will not go out like no bitch. I promise you that. And ripping my arm off is not scary. Losing your head is scary. There's not a lot of things that he does that's scary,
But I would say this, and I know you're not a big fan of Conor McGregor, but when he fought Conor McGregor, if any McGregor had one advantage in that fight, everybody would say it was his hands. He was the better striker. I thought Khabib really showed well with his hands in that fight. He landed a really nice right hand, and I thought he did well. Do you think he his hands are good just because he works on them a lot, or do you think his hands are showing the way they are because of that grappling threat that he has?
Yeah, absolutely, the grappling threat. You can't be a great striker when you're scared to get taken down. So, it will. If you are, if that's your biggest fear, then it'll be detrimental to every other aspect of your game. Mm-hmm. I'm not scared to wrestle with him. I've wrestled my whole life. And if one man can hold you down, then two can take advantage of you. That's my life motto.
Right.
No man can hold me down.
When you were offered the fight with Tony Ferguson, it was on short notice, obviously. There was a lot of downside to it, right? It came, but obviously the upside is you're, fighting for the, championship and the chance to fight for the real championship.
Yeah.
And so you ended up taking that opportunity. How close of a decision was it as you're weighing it in your mind? Was there ever a time where you were leaning toward, Dana, no, I'm going to wait for a regular opportunity and not take this now?
There was, and I learned a lot of things that fight, that process, because really it was my own fear that brought me to the point of almost not taking that fight. And I've never been in that position. I've never been scared of a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
But the challenge that Tony Ferguson was a cardio fight.
Right.
And to gain cardio, you need time. And luckily, I'm not sure why I was in such good shape. I had never an intention of fighting those guys. I had never thought they would not fight. But I knew that I would fight again, and I knew it would be huge. So I was, working. I was working, obviously, as much as I didn't know how hard I was working, but obviously it was a lot.
Right.
But yeah, it was, the first time they called me was 9 days. I went to my coach. I was like, hey, they offered me this fight. He's like, no, we don't take, your only motto your whole life has been, we don't take short notice fights.
Mm-hmm.
And I sparred 5 rounds. I was like, well, it just felt great. Maybe let's sleep on it. And then the next day he's like, all right, let's do it. And then I was all in. And then they called me like 5 days later or whatever. And they're like, all right, fight's off. And so I was like, and so I went and I gained like 12 pounds. And the next day they called me, they're like, fight's on. And I was like, yo, no, like, I'm not a puppet. Like, you don't get to pull my strings. I said the fight was on for this day, which was April 18th.
Right.
And, now you're trying to push it to May 9th. So now I lose the benefit of taking a short fight, a lot of the benefits that, I would have had if I was to lose, which are all excuses in the end. So, I should have never even considered that. But, yeah, as soon as that was weird. I would call him out. I'm like, hey, how many people got to die before they call this off?
Right.
So I was kind of looking for a way out in a sense. And,
wow.
it was messing with me mentally, but, it took me probably like 4 hours to really pull myself out of that and back on the grind. So it was a cool experience. It was a great learning experience.
I remember saying this to you. You were doing. I had an interview scheduled with Mike Tyson via Zoom, and you were on with him right before I talked to Tyson. And I watched your interview with him. And I remember, and I think I asked you this before, but in retrospect, after the Ferguson fight, I want to re-ask it. And you had said in that interview that you would rather lose by knockout or lose by finish in a crazy fight than win by decision. And, kind of a lot of people respected that. Right. But now you go and you fight Tony Ferguson, and it's, you were still an aggressive, exciting fighter, but you weren't the crazy dynamo that you were for a long time. So do you still hold to that statement that you made that, I would rather, lose by a crazy knockout than win, a decision?
Yeah, that's just part of my mindset going in there. It's kill or be killed for me. It's not wrestling. I couldn't create damage in wrestling. Right. Now I can't. This is not wrestling. As much as he thinks this is a wrestling match, it's so far from that. This is war. And I don't want to kill him, but I certainly want to cause massive damage to his body,
right,
to his head, to his brain. He doesn't think he can be hurt, and I'm going to show him that he is human.
Is there any concern, not concern, but I mean, his father passed, and obviously they had a close relationship. His father was a big part of his career. So, you could see it going one of two ways, hey, he doesn't have his father and he doesn't, perform the same, or maybe even raising his game on the other end of it and saying, I'm more motivated by my father. So how do you prepare yourself, when I know you think of things on all angles, when you think of that aspect of it, his father's not there and the way he's going to react, is there any strategy that you employ in regard to that?
So I do believe the latter will be the case here. I think this will be the best Khabib ever that I will face. I think he's been training with so much, you know, inspiration from his father, from the legacy that his father left, from the legacy that he has to carry on for his father. But we all have the reason why all of us fight, and the reason why a successful person is successful is because their why is so large. And my why is the reason I fight is my family. And, you know, whether they're my grandma and grandpa have passed away, they passed away like 4 or 5 years ago. I'm fighting for them. I'm fighting for my family that's alive right now. You know, so yeah, it should always be a motivating factor. His father was a motivating factor, alive or not alive, because of the inspiration that he was. I have the same thing in my family. So, you know, we're both going in there to represent our life. And yeah, it's going to be awesome.
Let's wrap this up with Justin Gaethje by asking this question. You know, you very famously, after you won in one of the best fights of the year and one of the, you know, stunning upsets, not stunning that you won, stunning the way you won, right? I mean, just totally dominated Tony Ferguson. Nobody ever saw that coming. You know, I could see you beating Tony Ferguson, but doing that, you know, I have to admit, nobody saw that coming. But you famously take that belt and you drop it after it was wrapped around your waist. Did you bring the belt with you? And Saturday, when Dana White puts the belt around your waist, will you drop that one or you leave that one stay there?
That one's no, I didn't bring my belt with me because I'm not sure if they let you keep more than one belt. But when I win this belt, they're gonna have to pry it out of my cold dead fingers if they want to take it from me. No, so it's really like, yeah, I don't want to harp on anybody, but if you remember when Dustin Poirier won his interim title belt, you know, the look on his face, the joy in his body was like he had just conquered the world.
Right.
And that wasn't the case. He still had the biggest mountain to climb. And yeah, so I think that was foolish. And I think we've seen it so many times where someone gets it. Even Khabib, when he won the belt from Iaquinta, he was all excited. Like, that wasn't a title fight.
I was there.
Yeah, it wasn't like Tony Ferguson's belt. His belt was fake. He beat Kevin Lee for that. You're talking about guys that are, you know, not fighters, that you're fighting for world championships, and then you're calling it a world championship win. That was not the case. Tony Ferguson was world class, but that was not a world championship fight. What it did is got me points on this pay-per-view. That's what I was fighting for.
That's interesting. I like the way you think, my man. Anyways, this is Justin Gaethje. He is, even though he doesn't want to call it, he's the UFC interim champion. He's fighting Khabib Nurmagomedov for the full lightweight championship, UFC 254 on October 24th. Justin, I wish you the best of luck. Can't wait to see the fight. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. It's an honor. You're awesome.
Be well, brother.